muy
Nous
India.
sommes là.
Good afternoon, just past 2 by the clock, and welcome to another edition of Midday Prime. Wednesday afternoon, it's another power-packed 60 minutes of action where we get you all the news, setting aside the noise and news as it happens from ground zero and across the world. Let's get started. I'm Anil Thomas with the big story. Well, second wave of COVID-19 weakens in the country. Daily positivity rate drops to 6.57% with 132,000 new cases in the last 24 hours. 21 crore 85 lakh vaccine doses given so far. Of these, 6 crore 10 lakh in the month of May. Unlock process begins in some states as cases decline. Rajasthan and Bihar relaxes restrictions for business activities. Maharashtra's Hafkin Biopharma gets centre's nod to produce co-vaccine. Union Cabinet chaired by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi approves Model Tenancy Act for circulation to all states, union territories for adaptation by the way of enacting fresh legislation or amending existing rental laws suitably. Dominican court to hear fugitive businessman Mehul CHOKSI'S extradition plea today. Antigua Prime Minister alleges that opposition party is trying to save Mehul CHOKSI. BRICS foreign ministers meet held virtually with India as the chair. Focus remains on COVID-19 pandemic, access to vaccines and counter-terrorism. Ministers agreed on 6 principles for strengthening and reforming the multilateral system. And in sports, Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal cruise through the opening round of the French Open. World number 1 Djokovic salutes brave and bold Naomi Osaka for withdrawing from the Grand Slam after revealing her struggles with depression and anxiety. Grand Slams pledge to create meaningful environments over the issue. Well, let's now begin with the top story. Well, a Dominican court is expected to hear fugitive businessman Mehul CHOKSI'S extradition plea to India today. CHOKSI is awaiting a hearing while being in the jail of Dominican, a Caribbean nation neighboring Antigua and Barbuda. The Dominican court has also stayed the businessman's movement outside of the country based on the lawyer's appeal and scheduled the hearing for Wednesday evening. Since India has no extradition arrangements with Dominica, it is believed that the government has sent a team of officials to the Caribbean country in an attempt to bring him back to the country. CHOKSI was reported missing a week ago from the island nation of Antigua and Barbuda, where he had been hiding for over 2 years, evading Indian law enforcement agencies. The latest events have given hope to Indian law enforcement agencies to lay hand on CHOKSI earlier than expected. Mehul CHOKSI had taken the citizenship of Antigua and Barbuda only a few months before the whole Punjab National Bank money laundering scam by Nirav Modi and his allies were unearthed. After India's extradition request to Antigua and Barbuda for Mehul CHOKSI as a money launderer and criminal offender, the local government had initiated the process to cancel CHOKSI's citizenship granted under the Caribbean Nations Citizenship by Investment Program or CIP in November 2017. But he has challenged the government's move in court. As the news of CHOKSI'S escape to a neighboring nation surfaced, Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown has given clear instructions to authorities in Dominica to have Mehul CHOKSI repatriated to India. Well, for more on this story, we've got our correspondent standing by, Abhishek Jha, giving us the latest insight into that hearing that takes place at around 6:30 this evening Indian time. Abhishek, good afternoon. Abhishek, in simple terms, what's the legal hurdle, especially when it comes to getting Mehul Choksi out of Dominica, or for that matter, Antigua? There's an Interpol notice that's been issued with regards to search for him. Is that enough ground, especially when it comes to the court of law? Is that enough ground to, hand him over back to India?
It could have been enough ground, Anil, provided his citizenship, that is secured and that is clear. Currently, the battery of lawyers that Mehul Choksi has hired, and they are especially very celebrated lawyers from London, they are all trying to plead the case from Mehul Choksi's side, where he can establish that Mehul Choksi ceases to be an Indian citizen. And in that case, if they are able to provide those evidences that Mehul Choksi does not belong to under the citizenship, legal citizenship of India, he will not be able to be repatriated to India from Dominica under any law. There is the catch, because Indian agencies have tried to put their papers and every documented evidence that the crime that Mehul Choksi has committed in India was during when he was already citizen of India, and his citizenship in Antigua is still under process, because there has been some illegal hurdles where currently the government of Antigua has ordered to revoke the citizenship of Mehul Choksi in Antigua. And if that also, if that fails to make him a citizenship of Antigua, he becomes a citizenship of India. And in that case, he can be repatriated back to India without being deported to Antigua directly from Dominica. So this is like three nations and one person and three citizenship. This is the total case that is making it a little complex.
Okay, now Abhishek, also put this into perspective. What happens to his Indian passport, and what does the law say, especially when it comes to, if there is a case that his lawyers build when it comes to dual citizenship?
So about his citizenship, there are three things. First, that he has said that he has surrendered his Indian passport to India, to which the Indian government or the sources are telling that government has not issued a certificate of surrendering of the passport of Mehul Choksi. So he still remains the Indian citizen, because India has by law not allowed him to surrender his citizenship. Next is there is another law which favors Mehul Choksi, actually, that says that if a person by naturalization or by any other means or takes citizenship of any other country, and if that is approved by that country, then automatically that person ceases to be an Indian citizen. So in that case, if Mehul Choksi has already got the citizenship of Antigua and Barbuda, like almost into 2017, so the moment he got that approval of citizenship in Antigua, same moment he loses citizenship of India, and he can't be a dual citizen. So going by that law, he will be allowed to remain a citizenship of Antigua, and Indian laws will not apply on him. This is the catch. Like one law says in favor of Mehul Choksi, there are chances that Indian agencies would try to pursue the case that the red corner notice were issued by India. He has committed a huge crime in India. There is this legal hurdle that stops him. In Antigua, when the government got to know that Mehul Choksi has been a criminal in India, they have started process of revoking his citizenship of Antigua. So maybe these all are the substantive evidences that Indian agencies are trying to put forth to Supreme Court of Dominica when the case will be heard.
Okay, one quick word. What is India's agencies that are involved in this extradition of Mehul Choksi? What are they hoping for? When this matter comes up for in the court later this evening, what are they hoping for? Are there any pinpointed arguments that the prosecution is going to make? Or are they going to purely look at that particular point that he is a fugitive and he is wanted in India? Is that the ground on which they are going to seek an extradition?
Actually, this is the only ground, because if Indian agencies are able to prove that he is being a fugitive of India as an Indian citizenship, as an Indian citizen, and also he is an illegal entrant to Dominican. So in that case, Dominica can actually allow to repatriate Mehul Choksi to India. But his side of the team, the lawyers, they have all claimed that Mehul Choksi is not an illegal entrant. Rather, he has been kidnapped by a few persons, and then he was forcibly brought to Dominica. And hence, the case, if that is proved by their lawyers, then obviously this whole fiasco. It will become a crime situation, and then everything from the abduction to other legal aspect that will be, on the case of merit, that will be judged by the court, and he'll be sent back to the country of origin, because Mehul Choksi is still in Dominica from the country of origin, that is Antigua, and the country of origin of him being in Dominica is not India. So probably these are the legal, tussle that the agencies, Mehul Choksi's lawyers, Antiguan side and Dominican prosecution will try to, find around or discussion like where should the case actually, what is the merit in the case.
Okay, thank you and appreciate your joining us and putting that into perspective for us. There are still many legal hurdles that could be explored, but we'll have to wait and watch at around 6:30 this evening Indian time when this matter comes up in the court. We'll have to see, what are the twists and turns that this particular case faces, especially in the court with the battery of lawyers that both will be involved in one trying to get an extradition while the other trying to save Mehul Choksi there. We'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Well, let's now move on to our developing story. Well, India, as the current BRICS chair, convened the standalone meetings of BRICS Ministers of Foreign Affairs International Relations on Tuesday. Ministers exchanged views on furthering intra-BRICS cooperation on three pillars of political and security, along with economic and finance, and people-to-people and cultural exchanges. As per the joint statement, the foreign ministers of Brazil, Russian Federation, India, China and South Africa review the progress in the intra-BRICS cooperation and collaboration. The ministers also expressed concern over the continuing public health, societal and economic impact of COVID-19. Emphasis on bilateral, multilateral cooperation to combat the pandemic was also laid. An urgency for expeditious development and deployment of COVID-19 vaccine was also on the minds. Ministers, however, reiterated their commitment to multilateralism through upholding international law and reaffirmed commitment to the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Foreign ministers also expressed their concern at continuing conflicts and violence in different parts of the world. In a goodwill gesture, ministers commended India and South Africa for their respective present and recent terms served in the UNSC. Meanwhile, support for a transparent, rules-based, open, inclusive and non-discriminatory multilateral trading system was also stressed upon. And lastly, the need to restore the normal functioning of all WTO functions. Well, let's now take a look at that BRICS joint statement on strengthening and reforming the multilateral system. What does that encompass? There are many things, 6 things that have been written in black and white. It should make instruments of global governance more inclusive, representative and participatory to facilitate greater and more meaningful participation of developing and least developed countries, especially Africa in global decision-making processes, and structural and make it better attuned to contemporary realities. The second point it raised, it should be based on inclusive consultation and collaboration for the benefit of all, while respecting sovereign independence, equality, mutual legitimate interest, and concerns to make the multilateral organizations more responsive, effective, transparent, and credible. The third point that it spoke about, it should make multilateral organizations more responsive, effective, transparent, democratic, objective, action-oriented, solution-oriented, and credible, so as to promote cooperation in building international relations based on the norms and principles of international law and the spirit of mutual respect, justice, equality, mutual beneficial cooperation, and realities of the contemporary world. The fourth point, it should use innovative and inclusive solutions, including digital and technological tools, to promote sustainable development and to help affordable and equitable access to global public goods for all. The fifth point, it should strengthen capacities of individual states and international organizations to better respond to new and emerging tradition and non-traditional challenges. These include emanating from terrorism, money laundering, cyber realm, infodemics, and even fake news. The final joint statement point that it should promote international and regional peace and security, social and economic development, and preserve nature's balance with people-centered international cooperation at its core. So 6 points in the joint statement that's been raised, and we'll also get a perspective on what these 6 statements mean, especially when it comes to the BRICS nations, on what do they mean, on what are the grounds on which this particular statements have been, this joint statement has been released. We've got Amrit Pal standing by to give us the latest insights on that particular BRIC nations meeting there, especially when it comes to that which took place virtually. Amrit Pal, good afternoon. Amrit Pal, India and South Africa, demanding with regards to the TRIPS waiver on that COVID-19 vaccines, and the mention of the term flexibilities, especially in that joint statement, is that clearly a first step, towards greater vaccine equity that you would see, being raised, especially by the BRIC nations?
That's right, Anil, and the very fact that the BRICS nations as a grouping has endorsed India and South Africa stand on that and said that they've, in fact, if you look at the joint statement that came out, it said that the BRICS grouping will support India and South Africa's case at the WTO, because both the countries had approached the WTO for the patent waiver, saying it's important for equitable and fair distribution of vaccine and access to diagnostics and medicines for the entire world. In fact, yesterday, if you hear the speech of the South African foreign minister, she made a very impassioned plea at BRICS in her opening remarks, where she said that, while the wealthier nations have vaccinated their population and have kept billions of vaccines with them, there is a huge number of people who do not have access to these vaccines in the not so privileged countries, and there is a need for equitable distribution of that, because we are in it together. Unless everybody is safe, nobody is safe. So if huge populations of the world remain do not have access to vaccines or the medicines or diagnostic kits, then this whole fight against the pandemic is of no value, and you cannot achieve what you're trying to achieve in terms of defeating the pandemic by vaccinating people. So BRICS did support that, and that was said that they will back the case for the patent waivers in the WTO.
Okay, and the foreign ministers also, expressed some kind of support when it comes to, comprehensive strengthening and reforming of the UN Security Council, the UN Economic and Social Council, the UN's, Secretariat. Do you somewhere feel, the BRIC nations slowly are asking for more footing or more leverage, especially when it comes to the UN body?
Anil, this is the first time that the BRICS as a grouping has sort of adopted a standalone statement saying that there is a need for reform of the UNSC. Remember, in BRICS, there are 2 permanent members, China and Russia. Now, these P5 are the countries who do not want to widen the club, and though India and some other nations have been consistently saying that these institutions do not represent the current realities. So with 2 important big players like China and Russia, who are members of the P5, take that position in another grouping, they are bound to be on the same position. Though countries have individually, bilaterally expressed support to India for its membership, permanent membership of the UNSC, but I think it's a big milestone where a grouping which includes 2 of the P5 members backs this, and they've done for the first time, and I think that's a very progressive step forward. And not just the UNSC, they've called for reform of the Bretton Woods institutions like the IMF, World Bank. They've called for reform of the WHO, given the pandemic and public health, because that is at the center of the public health of the world. So they've called for reform of the General Assembly itself, the UN Secretariat, ECOSOC. So I think that's quite a step forward when it comes to BRICS adopting that for the first time ever.
Okay, Amrit, this particular meeting also spoke about a result-oriented action plan, with regards to, what's happening in the neighborhood of, in Afghanistan. Do you somewhere feel that there is a sustainable solution that one is looking forward to, especially, with the way the BRIC nations are grouped, considering the fact that US and NATO allies are very soon going to pull out, their entire troops from there? and it could be a state of reflux purely with the groups that exist there taking control of that nation.
Absolutely. I think the position that the BRICS has taken on Afghanistan in the joint statement is completely reflects what Dr. Jaishankar brought up in his opening remarks, and India has been consistently saying that it has to be Afghan-owned, Afghan-led peace process, which should be inclusive. Yesterday's joint statement that came out of the meeting, after the meeting, followed the meeting, clearly says that all groups, including Afghan women, children, it has to be inclusive. And the gains made in the past 20 years need to be preserved. So I think that with the change of geopolitics, with the US and NATO, basically the West pulling out, all these players are very important players, especially Russia, China, India, because what happens in Afghanistan affects the whole region. So the BRICS are adopting this is in line with what India has been consistently saying, though there were differences, individual differences exist, say how the Chinese see the situation in Afghanistan and how the Indians. But coming together, at least on broader points on Afghanistan, I think that's a way forward.
Okay, that's the way forward. We'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us this afternoon, giving us your inputs with regards to that BRICS summit and the joint statement that's been released. Well, moving on to our national prime segment. Well, as part of the continued decline in the daily new cases, India has reported 132,000 new cases in the last 24 hours. 132,788 daily new cases were registered in the last 24 hours, and the country has recorded less than 2 lakh daily new cases for the 6th continuous days now. India has been witnessing a continuous fall in the active case load. 17,93,645 active cases have been reported as of now, a net decline of 1,01,875 witnessed in the last 24 hours, and active cases are now only 6.34% of the country's total positive cases. Recoveries, meanwhile, continue to outnumber the daily new cases for the 20th consecutive day. 2,31,456 patients recovered in the last 24 hours, and a total of 2,61,79,085 recoveries across the country so far. The recovery rate continues to increase at 92.48%. The weekly positivity rate currently stands at 8.21%. Meanwhile, the daily positivity rate dipped to 6.57%, less than 10% for the 9th consecutive day. Well, taking the cumulative look at number of COVID-19 vaccine doses that have been administered in the country, it has now exceeded 21 crore 85 lakh. The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country stands at 21 crore 85 lakh 46,667 as on day 137 of the vaccination drive, that's 1st of June 2021. 23 lakh 97,191 vaccine doses were given. Centre has also taken steps to accelerate the domestic vaccine production. More than 23 crore vaccine doses provided to states and union territories. More than 1 crore 65 lakh doses still available with states and union territories to be administered. 61.06 million doses of vaccine administered by states and union territories in the month of May 2021. 16.22 million balance unutilized doses available with states and union territories as of 31st of May 2021. Let's now also take a look at testing capacity or testing that's going on in the country. Testing for COVID-19 has been ramped up in the country. As per the Indian Council of Medical Research, that's ICMR, 20,19,773 tests being conducted on the 1st of June in the country. A total of 35 crore 57,330 samples have been tested for COVID-19 so far in India. The Labour and Employment Ministry has announced additional benefits for workers through social security schemes run by the EPFO and the ESIC amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking exclusively to DD News, Union Labour and Employment Secretary Apurva Chandra said that these benefits include pensions for dependents of insured persons who died due to COVID-19 and hike in maximum sum assured under the group insurance scheme run by EPFO to 7 lakh from 6 lakh rupees.
90% of the last pay drawn would be paid to the dependent, that is the dependent wife or mother or the children, the son or unmarried daughters. For the wife and mother, till they are alive, this pension would be given. For the son, till he attains the age of 25, and or for a daughter till she gets married. From the employee deposit linked insurance, the amount of compensation has been raised. Now it has been made a minimum of 2.5 lakhs and a maximum of 7 lakhs. So depending on the last pay drawn, the benefit would be given as a lump sum to that family, to the dependents. There would also be a pension from the Employee Provident Fund organization in case of an unfortunate death, which may range between 1,000 rupees to 3,000 rupees minimum. So that also will be available to the dependents. Gratuity would also be available.
Well, for more on the story, we've got on the COVID update and the state and central government's preparations for the third wave. We've got Tapash joining us this afternoon. Tapash, purely looking at the way things stand, there is a big fear when it comes to the third wave that's been created. Do you somewhere feel that we are lock, stock and barrel ready to take on third wave head on?
Well, it is too early to even say when the third wave will come and what will be the impact. But the fact of the matter is that there are hard lessons that needs to be learned from the second wave. And the government, both the center and the state governments, have been taking a close look at that. And they have already planned out and charted out a way if and when the third wave will come, how to deal with it. The primarily focus was on to ramp up the existing infrastructure, especially the hospitals, the paraphernalia which comes with the hospitals, including the doctors, the nurses, the beds, especially ICU beds, the ventilator beds, providing BPAP, the oxygen, all these facilities. These are the emergencies, the exigencies that need to be followed, and those are some of the things that the government has been doing. In fact, the government has been working on this not just now, but even during the first wave. And remember, when coronavirus came to the shores of the country, we only had one lab to test, and now we have more than 2,000 labs to do the testing. And now not just RT-PCR, but apart from that, there are different methodologies of testing that has come. And given the fact, the scientific community, the medical community, they are all working in tandem with the government to make sure that necessary infrastructure will be put in place so that if and when the third wave comes, India and the countrymen don't grapple the way they had to in the second wave, especially in the national capital, where a lot of people felt that the limitation of oxygen was a major concern at that particular time.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us this afternoon, giving us an insight into how prepared the nation is, especially if at all a third wave of COVID hits us. Well, moving on now to states which have begun the unlock procedures or relaxations that have come into force. Some states have started to ease curfew or lockdown-like restrictions amid a gradual decline in cases. In Bihar, concessions have been given for business activities during lockdown from today. The lockdown in the state will continue till the 8th of June. All types of shops and business establishments will open on alternate days from 6 a.m. till 2 p.m. As per the revised guidelines, all government offices will function every day till 4 p.m. with 25% attendance. Private and non-government offices will remain closed. Banks will function till 2 p.m. Well, as the declining trend in COVID-19 cases continue, the Rajasthan government has also started the unlock process of easing certain restrictions from today. According to the guidelines for the modified lockdown, exemption for various activities will be given only in areas where the positivity rate is less than 10%. All government offices of the state will open from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. with the attendance that's allowed 25% till 7th of June and 50% of attendance in the government offices after 7th of June. Meanwhile, private offices can open up to 2 p.m. with the presence of 25% employees, and the weekend curfew will remain in force every Friday afternoon from 12 in the noon to 5 a.m. on Tuesday morning, till the number of active cases in the state reduces to 10,000. Public discipline curfew will continue on the rest of the days from 12 noon to 5 a.m. the next day. Heading to Maharashtra, where the Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray has approved the notification to ensure that private hospitals in the state cannot overcharge patients for COVID treatment. He also directed the district collectors and municipal commissioners for strict and effective implementation. Meanwhile, let's take a look at Maharashtra's corona updates. 14,123 new cases being reported in the state. 35,949 patients discharged in the last 24 hours in the western state, while 54,31,319 COVID-19 patients have been discharged after full recovery. 477 COVID-19 deaths being reported in Maharashtra on Tuesday, out of 3,52,77,653 laboratory samples. 57,61,015 have tested positive. That's 16.33% for COVID-19 until today. Well, let's get our correspondents in Mumbai. From Mumbai, we've got Shishir Shelar joining us. From Rajasthan, we've got Vishal Baristo joining us on the unlocking process. Let me come to Shishir first. Shishir, looking at the way Mumbai stands, or Maharashtra in particular stands, do you feel the unlock procedure, we did have an extent till 15th of June, no other state did that. But, now looking at the way things stand, do you see the unlock procedure or the relaxations that have come into play have come at the right time?
Well, absolutely. Well, we can put the question on whether it's the right time or not looking at this number. But now if you look at the trend, especially the numbers that we are seeing every day, it's declining gradually here. Yesterday's number was around 14,000 here. And that's what we are seeing here, that numbers have been reducing day by day. And probably government think that this is the right time to give some relaxation. Although the lockdown continued till 15th of June here. But broadly, if you look at the entire state here, it's been divided into two parts. The first is like where the municipality areas or the districts where the positivity rate is almost 10%, or they have the oxygen bed which have been filled up to 50%. For those districts and for those municipality areas, the state government has given some relaxation. Now the shops can be open from morning 7 till afternoon 2 p.m. in this entire region here. The transportation have also been allowed. Nearly 25% of workforce, especially in government offices, have been allowed by the state government. Now, if you look at the other part, the districts and the municipality areas where the positivity rate is almost 20% and nearly 75% of oxygen beds are booked there. Those areas, the lockdown will continue in that particular area. Yeah, that's what the state government decided. That means the shops will open from 7 a.m. till 11 a.m. itself. And of course, all the except of essential shop, other services will be closed in those areas. So broadly, it is divided into these two categories in the entire state if you look at the entire situation here. Now, if you look at the Mumbai situation particularly, well, Mumbai have seen quite a declining trend in the last couple of weeks here. Even yesterday, the number was quite less. Even if you look at the positivity rate and the fatality rate of Mumbai has reduced considerably. Well, keeping that in mind, the BMC, the Mumbai Municipal Corporation, have adopted the odd-even formula for the shopkeepers. Now, the shop will be open in Mumbai between 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., but based on the odd-even formula here. So obviously, these are the aspects that each district and municipality or the corporation will take here. That's what the Chief Minister stated, that looking at this number, each local body should decide that what action they have to take here. Okay. If they think that the positivity rate is quite high, then obviously a stricter rules can be implemented in those particular regions. Okay. So now it depends mostly on the local authorities here that what decision they takes. But overall, if you look at the entire number of Maharashtra, it has reduced.
Okay, I'll just come to you, take a question on vaccine too. Let me head to Vishal, who's standing by from Rajasthan, giving us an insight from Jaipur. Vishal, looking at the way things stand in Rajasthan, there has been relaxation that's taken place. Has it come at the right time, especially for, trade and businesses there, this particular relaxation mode?
Very good afternoon to you, Anil. Yes, well, it is difficult to say that it has come at the right time because for the economy to function, you have to have an unlock because you cannot hold it for unlimited period. But let me tell you that it is a very cautious step taken by the government because the lockdown as a whole still exists till 8th of June. But the mini lockdown allows people to come out. Intra-district movement has been allowed, and you can also have shops open from 6 in the morning to 11 o'clock. But let me tell you that the incident that shocked everybody in Rajasthan, where we had hundreds of people attending the funeral of a leader of a community, in which the MLA of the ruling party of Rajasthan also attended the funeral, violating all the lockdown norms. Was a huge embarrassment for the Gahlot government. Though an FIR has been registered against him and 11 other people, but still it is a very, very alarming situation, because when you have a situation like when people are dying and you have positive cases still 200 plus in Jaipur, by the standards of Jaipur, it's still quite high. So you cannot ignore, or you cannot violate the norms, and that is why the Chief Minister is very much particular. And just now we have received a directive from the Home Department, and it has warned everybody who's having a wedding ceremony in their houses, and it says that only 11 persons are allowed, and for that also you have to inform the local authorities through a web portal that has been generated online, and anybody found violating the norm would be penalized with a 1 lakh rupee fine. Also, the AC complexes are all closed, along with schools and colleges and gymnasiums. Only the non-AC complexes have been allowed, and that also you will have shops open at alternate floors, and the local management will have to take care of. As far as the exams are concerned, because the CBSE and ICSA, they have already taken a decision. But as far as the RBS, the Rajasthan Board exams are concerned, well, that would be taken today evening after the cabinet meeting that would be held 5 o'clock in the evening. Anil?
Okay, Vishal, also give us a quick update when it comes to vaccinations there. How's the vaccination process? Is it picking up pace? Because I just heard a report with regards to excess of vaccines that are there in many states. But what's the situation there on ground zero when it comes to vaccination in Rajasthan?
Well, when it comes to Rajasthan, though, Rajasthan claims of having vaccinated more than 1 crore people, and it leading other states as well, but not all is good in Rajasthan, because I've also had my first shot, though it was in a private hospitals. Now there are no vaccines available, and the state government continues to say that they have not been provided the full quota. But as DD News viewers, we showed them how vaccines are being wasted in dustbins. Okay. And the health minister of Rajasthan saying, no, this is not correct. But the media openly criticizing the state government. How can they waste the vaccines? And in around 25 districts, this sting operation was held by a local media organization. And it claims that the vaccine that was wasted, 2,500 people could have been vaccinated out of that. Okay. So vaccination process is not going that well in Rajasthan. But then we have to wait and watch as to how long this vaccine politics goes on, because the center is clearly saying that it has been giving full quota, but the Rajasthan government denying it from day one.
Okay, we've got Shishir there. Shishir, a quick word from you before I let you go. Shishir, looking at the way, vaccination drive, Maharashtra, state of Mumbai very much ahead. But looking at an order that's come from the, especially when it comes to an upper limit, when it comes to charges that are being, charges that private hospitals can take. Do you think it's come a bit too late, considering the fact that there is a drop in the number of cases and hospitals are no longer flooded?
Well, absolutely. As far as vaccine is concerned, Anil, let me tell you that nearly in Maharashtra, if you look at the overall number, nearly 2 crore 25 lakh people have been vaccinated so far. Yesterday, if you look at the number, it was around 2 lakh 51,000 people vaccinated in a single day. And Maharashtra has received the maximum number of vaccine so far compared to other states. But still, Maharashtra government is asking to increase the quota, as they want to vaccinate people as fast as they can. And that's the reason some of the municipal corporation from Maharashtra, especially Mumbai, have also floated a global tender and have asked from the vaccine manufacturer to provide vaccine from them. The state is also ready to buy vaccine for itself. That's what the state health minister said a couple of days back. Even the chief minister have also mentioned in the address that state government is ready to pay the full amount for the vaccine, whoever is ready to provide the vaccine to the state. And that's the reason they are in touch with the vaccine manufacturer as well. Not just the Serum Institute and the Bharat Biotech, but even with the Pfizer and the other vaccine manufacturer abroad. And as I told you that the BMC, the Mumbai Municipal Corporation, has already floated a tender. They've also got some 8 interested parties who are ready to provide vaccine to Mumbai. And now the process is on that how and who can provide the vaccine at what time. As far as the amounts, you said that a new circular the state government has came. As far as the limitations of the hospital fee is concerned, you rightly said here that Maharashtra has witnessed the maximum number in April and March and probably till mid of May, what we have seen here. Well, during that time, the state government has not come out with this particular order, but now, after when see that the decline in trend, the overall COVID numbers, the state government has come out with the numbers that we have seen here, especially the orders they're talking about, where the private hospitals have been told not to charge amount, and that's the reason a fee structure have been announced. So obviously we can debate about the timings that the state government came out with this rules and regulations. It should have come quite early when the number was quite high in Maharashtra.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate both Shishir from Mumbai and Vishal joining us from Jaipur, giving us the insight. You take good care of yourself and appreciate you joining us this afternoon on Midday Prime. Well, staying with that story and COVID-19, a 500-bed COVID care hospital set up by the Defense Research and Development Organizations as DRDO in Haldwani was virtually inaugurated by the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, Tirath Singh Rawat, today. This facility comprises 375 oxygen beds and 125 ICU beds with ventilators. With 100% power backup, it is centrally air-conditioned for all weather conditions. Pathology laboratory, pharmacy, X-ray and ECG, etc. are all inherent part of the facility. The center will be fully operational from tomorrow. This hospital has been built in 21 days and is a result of the efforts of the workforce of 350 persons who work relentlessly round the clock under adverse weather conditions. Well, in order to expedite the COVID vaccine production in the country, the Government of India announced Atmanirbhar Bharat 3.0 Mission COVID Suraksha Initiative. Under the mission, the central government allowed Maharashtra government's Hafkin Biopharmaceutical Corporation Limited to start production of Covaxin, a COVID-19 vaccine developed by Bharat Biotech. Let's take a look at this report.
In order to increase the production of COVID vaccine in the country, the Government of India announced the Atmanirbhar Bharat 3.0 Mission COVID Suraksha Initiative. Under the mission, the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India is providing financial support as well as upgrading required infrastructure and technology of many public sector vaccine manufacturers. Mumbai's Hafnik Biopharmaceutical Corporation Limited, the state-run enterprises, got approval from the central government to start the production of Bharat Biotech's Covaxin. Dr. Renu Sarup, the Secretary Department of Biotechnology and Chairperson of BRICS, said the enhancing vaccine production capacity using public sector asset will go a long way in building production capacity of vaccines in the country to support the massive vaccination drive. With the help of the Ministry of Science and Technology, Bharat Biotech will sign MOU and transfer the technology to Hafnik Biopharmaceutical Corporation Limited. Sandeep Rathod, Managing Director of Hafnik Biopharmaceutical Corporation, said that with the technology in place, the institute will be manufacturing the drug substance at their BSL-3 laboratory, which are being made. And as part of the next step, the vaccine will be filled in bottles and product will be finished.
इस प्रोजेक्ट में हमको दो इम्पोर्टेंट स्टेप्स है, जिसमें पहला हमारा जो बल्क प्रोडक्शन है उसकी फैसिलिटी तैयार करना, जिसके लिए BSL-3 फैसिलिटी लगती है, उसका कंस्ट्रक्शन निर्माण करना, और दूसरा है उसके साथ उसका फिल फिनिश। तो ये BSL-3 फैसिलिटी तैयार करना ही सबसे महत्वपूर्ण इम्पोर्टेंट स्टेप है, जिसके लिए हम युद्ध स्तर पर काम कर रहे हैं, और ये एक बार हो जाएगी तो हमें लगता है कि जो टाइमलाइंस इसके लिए निर्धारित की गई है, इसमें हम ये कंप्लीट कर सकेंगे।
Hafnik Biopharma has been provided with a 65 crore grant by the centre and rupees 94 crore from the government of Maharashtra. The corporation is preparing the facility to start the production, and in a few months' time, the company proposes to produce 22.8 crore doses of Covaxin in a year. Hafkin Institute is one of the oldest biomedical research institute in the country and was established in 1899. It has developed an anti-rabies serum, anti-venom serum, oral polio vaccine, among others. Shishi Shela's report, TD News, Mumbai.
But the Union Cabinet, chaired by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, approved the Model Tenancy Act for circulation to all states and union territories for adaptation by way of enacting fresh legislation or amending existing rental laws suitably. It will help overhaul the legal framework with respect to rental housing across the country, which would help spur its overall growth. The Model Tenancy Act aims at creating a vibrant, sustainable and inclusive rental housing market in the country. It will enable creation of adequate rental housing stock for all the income groups, thereby addressing the issue of homelessness. Model Tenancy Act will enable institutionalization of rental housing by gradually shifting it towards a formal market. The Model Tenancy Act will help unlocking of vacant houses for rental housing purposes. It is expected to give a fillip to private participation in the rental housing as a business model for addressing the huge housing shortage. The Union Cabinet, chaired by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has given its ex post facto approval for signing and ratification of an agreement of cooperation in the field of mass media between all the member states of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The agreement was signed in June 2019. The agreement shall promote equal and mutually beneficial cooperation among associations in the field of mass media. Each side shall, on the basis of reciprocity, facilitate the activities, thereby ensuring equity. The agreement would provide an opportunity for the member states to share best practices and new innovations in the field of mass media. And in Midday Prime, it's time for the latest from the world of business. Well, I've got my colleague Tanvi standing by to get us the latest, especially from the stock markets. Tanvi, over to you.
Thank you, Anil. The domestic stock markets have ruled weak so far on Wednesday. So the Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange had declined 326 points or 0.6% to 51,609 a short while ago. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange had dropped 63 points or 0.4% to 15,512. But the broader market has outperformed, with the BSE mid-cap and the small-cap indices climbing a good 1% each. The top index gainers so far are Adani Enterprises, UPL, SBI Life Insurance and HDFC Life, which have climbed between 1.5% and 2.4%. The top index losers are ITC, Tech Mahindra, HDFC and Asian Paints, with losses of between 1.2% and 2.4%. Other key Asian markets also largely fell as investors awaited US jobs data and looked ahead to crucial central bank meetings in Europe and the United States for guidance on the interest rates outlook. So MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan touched a 3-month peak before profit-taking in Chinese markets pulled it 0.4% lower. China's benchmark Shanghai Composite Index lost 0.7% and Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was down 0.5%. But Japan's Nikkei Index rose 0.5%. Back home at the Forex market, the rupee had lost 27 paise against the dollar in opening trade on Wednesday amid falling domestic equities and a strong US currency. Later, the rupee remained weak and had depreciated 23 paise to 73 rupees 13 paise against the dollar in afternoon deals. At the multi-commodity exchange, gold had gained 145 rupees to 49,140 rupees per 10 grams. Silver had declined 300 rupees to 71,948 rupees per kilo. And shifting our attention to the global energy market, global crude oil prices rose on Wednesday after OPEC and its allies stuck to their plan to cautiously bring back oil supply to the markets in June and July, while also expecting a robust recovery in demand in the United States and China. These are the world's two biggest oil consumers. So US crude rose 18 cents or 0.3% to $67.90 a barrel. Brent crude climbed 22 cents or 0.3% to $70.47 a barrel. That's it in Business Prime for the moment. Back to you, Anil.
Well, thank you, Tanvi, for getting us the latest, especially when it comes to the stock markets. Well, moving now to taking a look at all the news from across the globe. Well, a quick look at COVID-19 updates from across the globe on how numbers stack up. The world continues to fight COVID-19 pandemic. So far, over 17 crore 19 lakh people have tested positive For coronavirus globally, the number of recoveries stand at more than 15 crore 44 lakh. As many as 35 lakh 76,000 people have lost their battle against COVID-19. United States continues to register the maximum number of COVID-19 cases as well as fatalities in the world. More than 3 crore 41 lakh people have tested positive for COVID-19 in the country, while the death toll in the United States of America stands at over 6 lakh 10,000. The World Health Organization, the WHO, has approved the Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use, the second Chinese jab to receive the WHO's green light. The UN Health Agency signed off a 2-dose vaccine, which is already being deployed in several countries around the world. This move gives countries, funders, procuring agencies and communities assurance that it meets international standards for safety, efficacy and manufacturing. Last month, Sinopharm became the first Chinese vaccine to be approved by the WHO. The organization has also given emergency use listing to vaccines being made by Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca jab being produced in India, South Korea and the EU, which it counts separately. Australia's Victoria State extended a snap COVID-19 lockdown for a second week in Melbourne on Wednesday in a bid to contain an outbreak of the highly contagious virus strain, but will ease some restrictions in other regions. Initially, Australia's second most populous state, Victoria, was plunged into lockdown last Thursday until June 3rd after a first locally acquired case was detected in 3 months. Snap lockdowns, regional border restrictions and tough social distancing rules are largely helped Australia to suppress all prior outbreaks and keep its COVID-19 numbers relatively low at just over 30,118 cases and less than 1,000 deaths. The actual number of deaths in that country stands at 910. Well, Google Doodle today celebrates American gay rights activist Frank Hamney, is widely recognized as one of the most prominent figures of the U.S. LGBTQ rights movement in celebration of Pride Month. Hamney, a Harvard astronomy PhD, was reportedly fired from a federal job in the 1950s because of his homosexuality. Well, it's time to now get you the latest from the world of sports. Well, I've got my colleague Ashok standing by to give us the latest. Ashok Martolia, over to you.
Thank you, Anil. Let's start Sports Prime with cricket. New Zealand would look to improve its patchy away record when Kane Williamson's side takes on England's cricket team in the first test of the 2-match series at Lord's Cricket Ground today. The Kiwis have lost 2 of their 3 matches played at home of cricket in 13 years. England, on the other hand, has rested some of its key players and look to strengthen bench strength ahead of Ashes in December. Both teams will feature one debutant each in their playing 11 as New Zealand's Devon Conway and England's James Bracey will play first ever test match today. Moving to tennis, India's Rohan Bopanna and Frank Gugor of Croatia sailed into the men's doubles second round at French Open with a straight set win over Georgia's Nicolas Basilashvili and Andrei Bazman of Germany. The Indo-Croatian pair took just an hour and 1 minute to win 6-4, 6-2 in their tournament opener. Bopanna and Gugor broke their opponents once in the first set and twice in the second to wrap up in a style. They will next take on to American duo Nicolas Munro and Francis Tiafoe. French world number 1 Novak Djokovic opened the first ever men's night session on Tuesday at the year's second Grand Slam French Open with an easy win over Tenancy Sengram with 6-2, 6-4 and 6-2 in the first round match to reach the second round. Djokovic will now play next Pablo Cuevas. Clay court legend and defending champion Rafael Nadal of Spain has started the French Open with a win in his classic style. Nadal booked a place in the second round after beating Alexei Poprin of Australia in the first round of men's singles. Third seed Nadal won the match 6-3, 6-2 and 7-6. Meanwhile, 7-seed Andrei Rublev and knocked out in the first round of French Open on Tuesday, as the informed Russian lost a 5-set thriller to Jan Lennard. Rublev fought back from the set down before succumbing to Germany's Lennard in the 3 hours and 46 minutes. Lennard won the match 6-3, 7-6, 4-6, 3-6 and 6-4 in 5 sets. So that's all in Sports Prime. Back to Anil. Namaskar.
Well, thank you, Ashok, for those latest from the world of sports. Well, it's time now to move to our next segment, Live Prime. Well, Thailand has welcomed back 2 ancient linters decades after they were stolen and smuggled out of the country. The Khmer-style stone carvings were stolen decades ago and smuggled to the United States, where they had been on display at the Asian Arts Museum in San Francisco. The museum was required to forfeit them after a settlement was reached in February this year between the United States government and San Francisco authorities. The Thai government will assess whether they can be returned to their original locations. Well, Lauren Vivitt's tasting menu is not for the faint-hearted, but many point to the future of feeding a booming world population prawn salad with yellow mealworm and crunchy insects on beds of vegetables. The European Food Safety Agency in January deemed the mealworm fit for human consumption and in May approved it to be sold on the market. The agency has fielded more than a dozen applications for insect-based food products, including crickets and locusts. Mealworms and insects more generally could offer a sustainable and low-carbon emission food source for the future. Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of Midday Prime, but do not drop your guard in the fight against COVID-19. Follow the simple process of SMS, maintaining social distance, wearing a mask at all times, and also sanitizing yourself whenever possible. Do take care, because we both need to see a better tomorrow. Thanks for watching.